Hello. I have a quick announcement about a BOGO sale that I am having tomorrow, October 4th, Tuesday, 2022. It's going to be at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time in a private Facebook group. And I have a link to the private Facebook group in the description box below if you are interested in participating in the BOGO. I have all of the details in the group, and you can learn more about it there. I am also happy to answer any questions that you have. Tomorrow, Stampin' Up! Is having a free shipping event just for October 4th. It's one day only. And I decided to host my BOGO the same day as the Stampin' Up! Free shipping offer. So if you have any questions, you can let me know below. But I wanted to just say that quickly before we get into making this card. So welcome everyone. My name is Melinda Hart. You are watching Stamping with Hart. I am an independent demonstrator with Stampin' Up! And you can find more information about this card and more on my blog at www.stampingwithhart.blogspot.com. What you are looking at here is an idea that I had for a Thanksgiving card, letting somebody know, that they were a blessing. And I wanted to do a whole theme around that. And I wanted to make this a repeatable card. What I wanted to do with this video, and what I failed to do miserably, and we can talk about that in a minute, was create an easy to repeat card. And it turns out that this card was not easy to repeat at all. And if you are a seasoned crafter, you may already recognize why. But let me tell you some of the mistakes that I made when it came to making this card project. So the goal was to create 15 cards, and I was hoping to create 15 cards in 30 minutes. And I can tell you, not only did that not happen, it took hours for me to make these cards. So just admittedly, before I even start getting into the design here, I just want to let you know there are things that I could have changed about the design of this card to make it a little bit quicker, to make more of them, because I wanted to make multiple cards for my BOGO event tomorrow. So for those who are going to place orders with me tomorrow, I wanted to be able to send out a card with the retired BOGO product that they're going to get. So the way that a BOGO works is whatever order they place in the online store, they can claim that amount of product in retired product from me. And like I said, I have all the details about it in that Facebook group. It's a private Facebook group. You can join in the link below. But let me go ahead and get into the design of this card. So I am using the leaf stamp from Hello Harvest. I'm going to be using 2 stamp sets to make these cards, Hello Harvest and the Cottage Wreaths stamp set. But I'm actually using the Cottage Wreaths bundle here, which you'll see. So these are Cajun Craze card bases. I'm stamping tone on tone, meaning I'm stamping the leaf in Cajun Craze ink, about half a leaf all the way around to create a frame border for our card bases. The card bases were cut to 4 1/4 by 11 and scored at 5 1/2. You can get 2 out of a single piece of 8 1/2 by 11 cardstock. Now here you can see there's a lot going on with the card. And I had trimmed down, this is the Gingham Cottage paper. I had trimmed that down to 3 by 4 1/2. I had cut 15 of those, 15 of the card bases. With my crumb cake, I had cut that piece to, I believe it was 3 3/4 by 5. And what I wanted to do here was a second border of the acorns. And this is really where I started making mistakes in the design of a repeat card. It was an awful lot of stamping. So I would definitely keep the card project simpler. You can either just eliminate this panel altogether, or maybe not do as many of the acorn stamps unless you have the time and you want to make the cards really elaborate and pretty. for whatever group of people you're making it for. But my goal with this card was to be able to make, like 15 cards in 30 minutes or 15 cards in 45 minutes. And I went way over that. And like I said, I'll get more into the details. But this is a crumb cake layer. And again, I'm stamping tone on tone. So I'm stamping the acorn and crumb cake ink. And I was doing this in an assembly line style, which I don't typically do on my Facebook Lives or even here on my channel. I have a tendency to design many different cards as opposed to designing a single card and then recreating it many times. So I tend not to mass produce cards with the same design. When I'm creating card classes and when I'm creating projects for you, just based on things that I know that you're liking and responding to from what I'm making, it's usually 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe up to 6 projects. And I usually will do a variety of measurements and colors, right? But with this, I really wanted to challenge myself to stick to an assembly line process for making a card so that everybody would essentially be getting the same card from me as a thank you for participating in my BOGO event tomorrow, on my Facebook group for anybody who, places that order with me. So I was like, I want to be able to have this specific card that I can, give to everyone and say that you're going to get this card. Well, that is out the window. So there is my truth. And, it's very hard for me to make a video and come on here and let you all know that I made a design mistake and that I wasn't able to stick to the same format for every single card. They're all very similar, but I did have to change it up, and I had to change it up for a few different reasons. Now, this die that you're seeing here, that came from the Scary Cute bundle. I believe it's called the Scary Silhouette Dies or the Silhouette Dies or something like that. And I wanted to, I love frames, and I wanted to cut a panel into this so that we could tuck our wreath inside the frame. Again, in terms of being able to recreate this quickly, I would just go ahead and say, don't worry about cutting out the panel. If you do want to cut out the panel, I would eliminate cutting somewhere else or, maybe not doing the acorn stamping. So I think if I would have eliminated 1 or 2 steps from that, it would have been much faster to make this card. And this is not my last attempt at this. If you do not succeed, you got to try again, right? So I will refine this process, see if I can create a different card that I can mass produce a little bit more easily, because as the holidays are coming up, I want to be able to create a few cards that are going to be easy for you to recreate in multiples if you need to, right? That's the goal with this. And I had taken a poll on my YouTube channel, and I had asked you, how many Christmas cards do you send? And there were so many of you who very kindly let me know what your range of cards was. So I had asked, do you send under 25? Do you send 25 to 50 cards? Do you send more than 50? Do you send more than 100? How many cards do you need to sit down and make? And I think the top answer, the last time I checked, the top answer was between 25 and 50 cards. So I'm going to work on this. I'm going to continue to kind of chip away at this. Now, of course, I have my Christmas card classes. And with the Christmas card classes, you get 6 cards in each class. You could, recreate as many as you want, depending on the product that you own. But if you take those classes, for several months, you're certainly going to come out with that amount of cards. But if you want to do a whole bunch of cards in one sitting, or maybe if you donate cards to a charity, or if you just have a ton of cards that you need to send out every year, then I want to be able to, offer that as part of the value that you get on this YouTube channel. So one of the ways that I do think that you can cut down on time is by cutting as many die cut pieces as you can in one pass. Now, the catch with that is that you have to pre-cut the paper so that you can fit multiple dies and different color papers on your plate at the same time. And I did find that very challenging when trying to make 15 of these in a row. I decided I wanted to use the Very Vanilla specialty paper. This is technically called the Glimmer 12 by 12 specialty paper. You get 3 different colors. You get Evening Evergreen, Very Vanilla, and Gold in the papers. And I ended up running out of this. So I actually thought I had a whole nother sheet of it and I had used it on other projects. So, you might want to take all of your inventory out ahead of time. Make sure that you have enough of what you need to mass produce your cards. And again, if you're seasoned at this, you already know, but maybe you're just doing this for the first time. Maybe this is your first year making handmade cards for Christmas. Maybe you're surprising your friends and your family and your coworkers and your neighbors, and you're just getting into this hobby. So if that is the case, you want to be able to make something that's manageable. And I like fancy cards. I like cards that have really a lot of detail on them. I like multiple stamping. I like layering. I'm somebody who really enjoys those smaller dies, like the little die cut acorns. Those are very small detailed pieces. This bow for the wreath, I love wreaths. I love that bow. So I want to be able to use that. And if you're purchasing bundles, you want to be able to use the product that you buy. So I will have a tendency to design projects that I'm using all of those things on my cards, because I want to make sure I'm not only getting my money's worth out of it, but that I'm making those cards really stand out, that those cards look different than the ones that you would purchase in a store, right? So that when that person gets that card from you, they feel so special, right? They're really appreciating that you took the time to make something pretty for that person. So with all of those things in mind, this was a learning curve for me. This was something that I had to sort of stand back and say, okay, I like elaborate cards. I like cards that have lots of layers and details on it. But maybe if I'm going to sit down in one sitting and make 15 of them, I need to make it a little bit easier. So going through this now with all of you, I thought about not publishing this video. I thought about redoing it, if I'm being completely honest. And I thought, you know what? I bet you that as I publish this video, there are so many of you out there who maybe you've done the same thing, or maybe you sat down to make a card and you got overwhelmed, or maybe you sat down to make a card and you didn't like the way that it turned out. We all do things and we all try things when we're trying to, be creative or try something new, that maybe it doesn't work out exactly the way that we planned. And I just want you to know that even as a demonstrator, I make mistakes all the time. I get design elements wrong sometimes. And even though I had sort of like the best laid plans to make this card, an easy to recreate card, that I really overdid it in terms of, everything here. And I could have easily sped up this video and just said, oh, you can make these cards in under 30 minutes. But that's not true, because when you're sitting there in real time and you're trying to cut all of these pieces and you're trying to cut all of the card bases and all of the layers, and then you're doing these detail things like cutting a frame into the gingham paper and then cutting these dies, that, it all adds up in terms of time, and it's worth it. It's beautiful, but it's time consuming. So I wasn't able to effectively say, oh, hey, I was able to do this in 30 minutes. There was no way. Now here was another detail thing that I did. This banner stamp from Hello Harvest, the original stamp says, wishing you the loveliest day. And many times Stampin' Up! Will make sentiments interchangeable in a banner. This one was not. So what you see me doing is masking. I'm actually masking the sentiment. I'm putting a little Post-it over the sentiment that has the sticky piece of the Post-it on the sentiment so that I can change it. And I decided to change it to, you are such a blessing. Now, if you're making these cards for Thanksgiving, you can leave it wishing you the loveliest day, because of course we're wishing you a lovely Thanksgiving day without, actually using the sentiment Happy Thanksgiving. You can use whatever stamps you have on hand. Maybe you can stamp that on the inside of the card. We do have a stamp set in the mini catalog that has that sentiment in it. But if you have grateful, thank you, gratitude, you are a blessing, all of that, you can use any of those for that holiday, really, right? So here with my masking, what had happened was my Post-it got too saturated and it started coming through. So that ink started seeping through and getting onto the words from the banner stamp. And I had a lot of mistakes actually happen while making this video. And one of the mistakes that happened was I have a tendency to drop my dies. And I had pulled all of my product out for my BOGO event that's happening tomorrow. And it was sitting all around me. And when I dropped my die, I actually, I lost it. So that wreath that I was cutting in repeat, I lost the wreath. So I ran out of the Very Vanilla specialty paper. I still, as I'm editing this video, I still cannot find that wreath die. And I think I dropped it into a bin of old designer series paper. And the paper is still gorgeous, but it's a big, huge pile of it. And I have to go through it. And that's probably where the wreath went. But this is just an example of letting you know these are the things that can start to happen when you're trying to make a card and repeat. So what I would suggest, and there are so many different things you could change. Don't cut out the small acorns. Maybe don't add the crumb cake panel. If you're doing the wreath, maybe cut just one instead of a 2-layer wreath. Don't worry about masking the sentiment, right? There are definitely ways that you can make it simpler, but what I would suggest is if you have anybody that is willing to sit down and craft with you, which, that is a dream for me. I do not have anybody that I get to craft with in person, believe it or not. Everything that I do is online and I'm always by myself when I'm crafting, but it's a dream of mine to be able to sit down with a group of people and, make a whole huge pile of the same card that we can give out. I just think that would be so cute and so much fun. So if you have somebody who's willing to sit down and help you with this process, one person's doing card bases, one person's cutting layers, one person is stamping the sentiment, one person is cutting the wreaths. If you can make a party out of this, I think that might be the best solution to make this process go faster if you really want to keep very detailed cards like this one. Don't get me wrong. I love the design of this card. I love the way that it turned out. I love looking at 15 of them, I have to tell you. And I'll probably end up making more just depending on how the BOGO goes. But it's one of those things where it is not easy to admit that you made a card too complicated for something that can be mass produced. But this is how they turned out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a picture up here on the screen of the cards that I did get finished in time for the video. I ran out of crumb cake cardstock. I'm telling you. I know I have I'm going to find it. I know I have a whole pile of it. I have a whole shelf full of cardstock. And every time I'm designing classes and, which I do monthly, I pull that cardstock and I usually will work in another room and then I don't put it back and then I can't find it. And then I start working with scraps. So it was one thing after another. But honestly, this is the picture of the cards and, how they ended up turning out. I did have to change up the wreath on a couple of them. I did have to change up the layer on a few of them, but the main concept is the same. So this is my video of me saying very good intentions, didn't turn out the way that I thought. I did make a mistake there. I'm going to try this assembly line process again. Let me know in the comments. I love hearing from you regardless as, to what you want to talk about in the comments, but Let me know in the comments if you're comfortable. If you feel like you make more mistakes as a crafter than you get right. I feel like that a lot of the time, and I might not necessarily show that on a video because I have the ability to edit and fix my mistakes before you see them. But sometimes I just, sometimes I just like to be vulnerable and share that it doesn't always go the way that I think. So the cards are beautiful, but can I tell you that you can sit down and do them in 30, 45 minutes? No, it's going to take 2 hours, 2.5 hours. And that's to, making sure that you have all the product that you need. That's making sure that you don't lose your dies and all of that lovely stuff. So I hope you enjoyed this video regardless, and I hope you enjoyed this chat. Don't forget about my BOGO event, which is happening on Tuesday, October 4th. That is tomorrow. I'm going to do a Facebook Live in a private Facebook group just for the BOGO event. Remember that Stampin' Up! Is also having their free shipping day, and it's on qualifying orders of $75 or more, and it's a one-day only event. So all of the information is in the description box below. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, I would love to have you subscribe. I do crafting tutorials each week. Typically, there are not a ton of mistakes, but this one there was. Oh well. And I will see you again in the next video.